What is going on, college sports fans, Mountaineer fellow members of Mountaineer Nation, and Big 12 fans? This is Couz, and welcome to another Couz's Corner live stream, what I like to call college football happy hour. Welcome in to the show tonight, guys. Don't get to do a whole lot of these live streams, but I'm glad I'm able to be with you tonight to do this one. I have some really interesting information I want to share with you that's come out in the past couple of days regarding conference realignment, conference expansion, regarding Pac-12, Big 12, and even some Big 10 stuff in this news I'm going to share with you tonight. What is up, Gamecock Chuck in the house? What up, man? Jason O. Welcome to the show, guys. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is the news that broke, or I don't know if it's news, rumor, whatever, that San Diego State has apparently accepted an invitation to the Pac-12 conference, and they have told the Big 12 and Brett Yormark, thanks but no thanks, we're going to the Pac-12. Now, this news, where I first heard it from, or this rumor, I should say, because I haven't seen it reported by any major news outlets, and I haven't seen it reported, haven't seen any statements from the school or from the conference, anything like that. But I've heard it on a couple different podcasts, so, take it with a grain of salt. Believe it if you want to. If you don't. That's fine. But I'm just here to tell you what we're hearing, what's out there, and give you my thoughts on it. But this first came up on a show called The Monty Show. They're out in Utah. They cover the Pac-12 a lot, but they've been all over this conference realignment thing. They reportedly have, or supposedly have, sources in that part of the country that gives them a lot of information and things. And they're saying their sources have told them that San Diego State has indeed accepted an invitation to the Pac-12. And I'm going to share the episode with you where they broke this supposed news. Here we go.
We were told last night that San Diego State has informed the Big 12 that they will not be joining the Big 12, that their intention would be to join the Pac-12, and that, it's a more natural fit for them. And I think it makes a lot of sense because I think San Diego State has to be very budget conscious. You have a lot of debt on their new stadium and facilities. I think you are becoming this larger athletic program. This run to the Final Four certainly means a financial influx for the conference. But I think if you're San Diego State, you believe you're capable of more. But I think it is a very smart move by San Diego State. If you're going to bump up to a P5, I would tell you to stay in the Pac-12 if you have that opportunity. It's in your footprint. Obviously, travel costs, mental health, all of the wear and tear that we've talked about on athletes in these conference realignment scenarios. I think it makes far more sense for San Diego State to be in the Pac-12 than it does in the Big 12. And I think there's a whole heck of a lot of value in San Diego State from a geography standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, from their academics. I think their education is very good. I think San Diego State, with its new facilities, especially football, with Snapdragon Stadium, I think there's a lot to be excited about. San Diego's a beautiful market. Of course, the Pac-12 would like to add that to its conference and to its footprint. It only makes sense. And I also think that San Diego State carries quite a bit of water in that town, in that they're going to be able to get a better revenue share in the Pac-12 than they would in the Big 12. So financially, it's going to be a better deal based on whatever the Pac-12 TV deal winds up being. But, one of the other things that I think we have to talk to Commissioner Navarez about is, what is her relationship with George Kliavkoff? Because I've watched several interviews with her where she is absolutely given a glowing endorsement to Commissioner Kliavkoff. And I think one of the biggest issues I have in that conference and in that situation, and her roots in the WCC and then jumping up to the Mountain West, I think at some point we have to start thinking about.
Okay, guys, I think I played enough of that for you. You get the gist of it. And what they were talking about there, they actually did an interview with San Diego State's president, or I'm sorry, not San Diego State's president, but the Mountain West Conference commissioner, and asked her point blank, did you expect San Diego State to leave the conference? Now, I haven't had a chance to watch or listen to that interview yet, but I do plan to do so at some point. because I respect those guys for asking the tough questions, and I'm going to be anxious to see. And it's my understanding, I did see a small clip of the interview. I think she point blank said, "Yeah, I took the job knowing they would probably leave, or expected them to leave, or knew they could leave, something of that nature." So I respect her for that blunt answer as well. But I haven't had a chance to watch the whole interview, so I don't know the context of it. But right there, you see the Monty Show saying, "Hey, San Diego State has accepted an invitation to the Pac-12, so that means they're not coming to the Big 12." I also saw it. Greg Swain on Twitter, he has a show called The Swain Show. There are some people on Twitter who say this, you can't believe anything this guy says. There are some people who says, yeah, you can believe him. I don't know. All I'm telling you is he claims to have sources out there. He claims to have connections. And he's also saying he's hearing the same thing. Now, like I said, you can take these guys with a grain of salt if you want to. I don't know much about them. All I'm telling you is what I'm hearing, but it is interesting. What does it mean for the Big 12? Well, first off, what does it mean for the Big 12 getting Pac-12 schools? Now, on the surface, you'd think, well, apparently, if San Diego State is going to the Pac-12, then it must mean the Pac-12 is not falling apart, and it must mean they're staying together, because why else would San Diego State accept the invite? Why would they go to a conference that's falling apart? And that makes sense. But then you see what came out today, or maybe yesterday, in I think it was in the Oklahoman by Barry Trammell, and I'm not able to read it, the article, because it's behind a paywall and I'm not subscribed. But college football's pick around the corner with Greg Flugauer did show the article on his show today, and I'm going to play that clip for you next. I think you'll find this interesting as well. But listen to this. We get the full screen here. All right.
Let's get into Barry Trammell, Scissor Tales, why Oklahoma State's and Mike Gundy says Big Ten expansion still likely. This is from Barry Trammell from the Oklahoman. Big 12 football will go through a transition season in 2023 with 14 members. Then Oklahoma and Texas head to the Southeastern Conference. But that doesn't necessarily mean the Big 12 will be back to its original number of 12 members. Mike Gundy still thinks further expansion is coming. I asked Gundy on Monday about the Big 12 scheduling model going forward, and he doesn't know much more than the rest of us, but he does say this: I don't know what they're going to do, because I think they're going to bring more schools in. And it could happen pretty fast, right? Gundy said with Pac-12, that's the money shot of this article, it could happen pretty fast with Pac-12. The Big 12's recruitment of Pac-12 schools is not a secret. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark has repeatedly said he wants to stretch the conference into the West, and the Pac-12 is the clear target. After that league's vulnerability in the wake of the UCLA and Southern Cal exodus to the Big Ten scheduled for 2024. And if the Big 12 is at 12 members in 2024, a scheduling model must be adopted. I don't know if they really know or what they want to commit to right now, because they're unsure what the total number of schools will be, Gundy said. If potential expansion comes after 2024, the Big 12 could be faced with a change in format for 4 straight years. So is that the holdup for the Big 12 scheduling? Trying to cement a scheduling format because they don't even know how many schools they're going to have in the conference for 2024? Is that the same reason with the Big 10? Is that what's going on throughout the college conferences with the scheduling? They don't even know how many schools exactly they're going to be in their conference in 2024. That's probably playing a big part in it. Mike Gundy, he said it in public once again, still likely that the Big 12 will have further expansion in realignment in this cycle. Put down your comments and thoughts. Do you agree with Mike Gundy?
Now, I don't know what to think about that. Mike Gundy says he thinks they're going to add more teams, but let's be honest here. Would a coach, and maybe he would a head coach actually know what's going on with expansion? I'm not sure they would. Would presidents and ADs share that kind of information with coaches? I mean, you hear coaches say all the time, "Well, that's above my pay grade," or "I'm not privy to that information. I'm focusing on coaching football." You hear that kind of stuff all the time from coaches. So I don't know what to think of Mike Gundy's words. What do you guys think? I want to hear your thoughts. Yeah, San Diego State's in the Mountain West now, Jeremy. What's up, Joey Foster? Jeremy Croy, channel member Jeremy Croy says, Mike Gundy, can't wait to hear that. Yeah, definitely. Mike Gundy's always got something interesting to say. What conference will San Diego State? Mountain West? Yes, they are in the Mountain West. David Cummings, another member. He says, it's not going down this year. If it does, then it's a crazy money grab and shame on them. I assume you're talking about the San Diego State move, David, right? Being the money grab. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me why San Diego State, assuming that's even true, that may not even be true, but it doesn't make sense to me that San Diego State would accept a conference invite with the conference being so uncertain, the future of the conference being so uncertain. Now, they might have accepted with a caveat that, hey, we'll accept the invitation, but we're not going to sign anything until you guys get your media deal figured out and you get your future secured. Now, then maybe, just maybe, they'll sign. Maybe it's just a verbal. It could just be a verbal agreement. A verbal agreement in this day and age doesn't go very far. It only goes as far as, the person you're telling it to, right? Until it's on paper and it's a signed agreement, it doesn't mean jack squat in today's world, unfortunately. Things aren't done with handshakes anymore, especially deals like this. I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars here. They're not going to, so until it's on paper, I don't know if I believe it. There was a part of me that did want San Diego State in the Big 12. I'm not a huge fan of adding more group of 5 schools. But for some reason, I just feel like San Diego State is a school that's right on the cusp of being a really big time program, and that might push them over the edge, And let's be honest, San Diego is a beautiful city, and maybe it would give me an excuse to visit it sometime. Jeremy Croy says, Couz, all conference expansion talk involves teams far from us. Does that really help us? Just more teams? Right, Jeremy, and that's why it doesn't excite me that much. Now, if we could get Oregon and Washington, I'd be all for it, man. Just to have Oregon on the schedule would be exciting to me. Washington on the schedule. But other than that, man, I just don't get really excited about these teams out west. And I know I might be in the minority here, but, I've been hearing talk that they might look to add UConn as a basketball-only member. I would actually like to see them add UConn as a football member. And I know that sounds crazy, but their football program's on the rise now. They're independent. They've got Jim Moore Jr. as their coach. They made a bowl game last year. They won quite a few games. I think their administration is starting to put more focus on football. At least I hope so. And we all saw what UConn can do when they're in a conference that's considered a top tier conference. When they were in the Big East, I mean, they won big East titles. They went to New Year's Day bowl games. So I think UConn would be – if they're going to add UConn, I think they should add them as football and basketball. Guys, I got a special guest coming on, JJ Kitchen with Talking Football, JJ Kitchen. And I know my West Virginia fans out there, he's a Pitt fan, so don't get too bent out of shape. But he's a great guy, has a great show. So I hope you enjoy it. And we're going to get the ACC perspective of what's going on with conference expansion. What's going on, JJ?
Couz, what's going on, brother?
It's about time we got to do this, isn't it?
I know, man. Shit, we're always so busy, man. Especially between jobs and stuff like that.
It's crazy.
It's been fun, but yeah, it's good to be on your show again, man. You do a hell of a job, and it's very noticeable. You see all the comments you get and everything, and it's really cool, especially too with the West Virginia fans being so loyal to your show. It's very noticeable, brother. I mean, you got the best show out there with West Virginia. It's kind of funny when I tell Pitt fans all the time. I said, you want to know what's going on with West Virginia? Just follow Couz's corner. It's pretty simple.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. It means a lot. And I've told people the same about your show as well.
I've heard, man. Again, thank you so much, man. It's been great. I've had some West Virginia fans comment on the show and everything. It's been awesome. I love it, man. Just happy to have you guys on the schedule again.
Yeah, man, it's exciting. I'm already excited for that game, and we're still how many months? 6 months out or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Kenny Evans says, I want Big 12 to grab East Coast teams. Oh, yeah, I think I read that one already. My bad. Joey Foster says, I would like to see Oregon and Washington come to the Big 12 with no exit fees. This way, if they get invited to the Big 10, it won't cost them to leave, and it makes the Big 12 stronger. I actually, Joey, I think we're in a minority. I actually wouldn't have an issue with that. I know that sounds crazy, but Oregon and Washington are two of the top brands left out there that aren't in the Big 10 and SEC. And if you get a chance to get them in your league, I think you take it, in my opinion. What do you think, JJ?
I would agree 110%. I think if the Big 12 has an opportunity to add those two teams, especially when you look at Washington, just because of the market that they bring. Now, Oregon doesn't bring a big market, but they bring a big brand. That is a very large brand, especially with the Phil Knight money.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you're going to add teams that add value in terms of whether it's brand or market. They follow their brand. So, I mean, that would be a tremendous pickup. And it was funny. I was watching a little bit of your show earlier. I disagree with the guy that was talking about how San Diego State going to the Pac-12 is better. I disagree. I think the Big 12 would be a better move. Little shocked he thought it was a good idea to go to the Pac-12. The Big 12 is the safer conference at this point. And I think at the end of the day, they're going to get more money than the Pac-12. And I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were just looking at that from a geography perspective, and because of the Pac-12's connection, because it's a California conference, or a West Coast conference, and it just seems like such a natural fit, and it does to a degree. But if you look at the state of each conference today and where they are today, I think you're right. I think the Big 12 is in a much better position going forward for the future.
Yeah,
but geographically, yeah, it makes more sense. But we all know geography went out the window a long time ago, man.
Yeah.
I made a comment. I don't know if you heard me talking about UConn. There's rumors out there that the Big 12 is looking at UConn as a basketball only member. And I'm thinking, why not add them for football? I know they haven't been good lately, but they were okay last year. And I think Jim Moore Jr.'s got them on the rise again. And we've all seen with UConn, if they get in a conference that's gets more national recognition and they're making more money, I think they can compete, or at least get to the point where they can compete. What would you think about UConn being back in a power conference again?
It's crazy. A couple of years ago, I would have said, no way in hell would you add UConn.
Yeah.
But when you see this past season, you saw the success. They had 7 or 8 wins this past year in football. Mm-hmm. Clearly, they're in the Final Four with basketball. I think you add both, because at the end of the day, if you add both, you're adding that entire Northeast market, the whole Connecticut, New England area. I'll tell you what, it's a very rich area in talent in terms of especially underrated recruits, especially for football. And I think if you're able to add that, you're kind of dipping into that point where you're now getting towards the upper portion of the East Coast, and you're kind of enticing it. Because eventually, let's say something happens down the road where, let's say like in 2030, maybe something happens with the ACC, or in terms of just, it's just not working out, where the ACC is looking to expand and maybe Syracuse isn't a part of it. Look at Syracuse up there. You know what I mean? That could potentially be something. But I think when you look at UConn, that would be a great ad with basketball and football, especially when they get that type of money. I think it'd be a good ad.
Yeah, and they're an independent, so you don't have to worry about paying a conference buyout fee.
Yeah.
I don't know why you wouldn't add them. And so to me, that whole basketball only thing's a little odd, unless UConn just doesn't want to be in a conference.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of, and why wouldn't, if you have the opportunity, why would you not?
Yeah, why would you turn down millions of dollars? And I just think that the days of adding teams is just a basketball only type of conference. That's saved for like the Big East and teams like that. When you're in the Power 5, you're looking to add quality schools that'll bring a revolving amount of athletics in there. That's what you truly want.
Yeah. Jeremy Croy, he's one of my channel members. He says, thanks for joining the show.
I appreciate that, Jeremy, man. I really do. Thank you.
He also says he loves the fact that a WVU and Pitt fan can have a logical discussion.
We're one of the very few, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Hey, we might talk we'll talk some trash on Twitter about the opposing teams.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all in fun. It's never personal. And we know that. At least it's not from our perspective.
Yeah.
Jason O says UConn won't leave the Big East just for basketball. They would only leave to place their football team in a conference, and that makes sense. I mean, why would you? The Big East basketball conference is. I mean, obviously you've got Creighton, and you had Creighton in the Final Four. I mean, Elite Eight, so they're doing well. I mean, and UConn in the Final Four. Maybe, and everybody's picking them to win a national title. Xavier had a good year. I mean, Big
It's-
East
it's-
is a heck of a basketball conference, man. So
Yeah.
but if you've got a chance to put your football team and your basketball team in a Power 5 conference where you can bring in probably 2 to 3 times the money you're making now, why would you not do it? It just makes no sense to me. Unless the Big 12, from a TV perspective, saw that, hey, maybe they're not additive to their TV deal. I don't know.
Yeah, I would tell Jason on this one, man. If a Power 5 conference is willing to take you, especially for football, it's going to be a package deal. The Power 5 conference is not just going to take football or just take basketball. It's going to be the full package. And I think at the end of the day, that's a major benefit just in terms of money. I agree the Big East has great basketball, but they don't have any money in that conference. If the Big 12 comes calling and says, hey, well, look, we'll take you both, I can tell you this right now. I can tell you right now, UConn is jumping within seconds. It's not even a question at that point.
Brian McGuinn, and I'm not sure what Brian's connection is. Brian, maybe you can enlighten us in the comments as to how where did you get this information? But he says UConn proposed a scheduling sling with Big 12 to play X number of Big 12 teams per year as out of conference. Schedule alliance similar to Notre Dame. Why not just be a member of the conference?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of pigeonholing yourself.
I mean, no offense to UConn, but they're not Notre Dame. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if they have a schedule alliance, it's still not helping them with money. I mean, it's just adding teams to your schedule. You know what I mean? There's no benefit to UConn.
They're not getting the TV deal money.
Yeah. So what does that matter? You know what I mean?
UConn would have to be added to the Big 12 TV deal, right, Lord Ray? And that's what I said. Maybe they're not. I mean, we all know the pro rata clause in the Big 12 deal says, hey, you only get this money if you add Power 5 teams. And I'm sure they probably don't count UConn as a Power 5 team, obviously. So maybe they're not including the pro rata money, so it doesn't add money to the deal. That's very possible. And Brett Yormark has stated he wants to monetize basketball separately on the next TV deal. He wants to give basketball its own separate deal, which I think that's why he's looking at some basketball-only schools like Gonzaga, for example, to try to strengthen that piece of it. So maybe UConn's part of that. I don't know. Either way, it would be good for West Virginia to get them in the league. It would actually be more beneficial to have them in basketball because of the travel piece. Because travel in basketball obviously is more challenging than football because you play multiple games in a week.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I did some research on UConn when I did a video about them several months ago, and they actually are a more valuable asset than people realize. They have a pretty big fan following, believe it or not. UConn does, and most of them are up in that northeast part of the country. A lot of people in New York follow UConn. And UConn's not that far from New York, man. So to me, it gets you into a new market. So yeah, unless they're just totally dilutive to the deal, I think you try to get them. That's my opinion. The pro rata is guaranteed. UConn would be worth at least as much as the teams there get on TV in the Northeast. That's what Lord Ray and I agree, man. I totally agree with you. I think it's a no-brainer. Big 12 should add UConn. Why not? So most of you guys agree with me. I was surprised at that because when I did a video on it, I got a lot of people saying, hell no, they're terrible in football. But you got to look at the big picture, in my opinion.
And I would say this too, one, they were bad in football. Obviously being independent has kind of helped them a little bit because of just a little bit of money they do get. I can tell you this. I can promise you that if they want to get into a conference and the Big 12 offers, UConn's taking it because, one, that athletic department is in a lot of debt. And they need as much money as possible, and they'll get a lot more money in the Big 12 than wherever we're just going to be independent. So I can promise you, if they're offered, they're making that jump to any Power 5 conference. It doesn't matter where it is.
Right, and I did when I was doing my research. I found some articles too. Apparently, UConn has made it clear they want their end goal is to be in the ACC. That's where they really want to be. So maybe they see there's a possibility there and don't want to jump the gun and get into Big 12. No, maybe in the back of their mind they think there's a chance they can get in the ACC at some point, and they don't want to blow their chance, so to speak. That's another thing. The only other reason I could think of that might prevent them from. But the thing is, why don't you take to me you take the money that's there today, and worry about tomorrow. Because in today's landscape of college sports, it changes so rapidly.
Yeah,
and the money is so huge. To me, you take it. I'll get back to Jeremy's comment in a second, but Lord Raiden says, what if they are bad at football? Someone has to take losses, and they will be just fine. That's every conference has somebody that's bad, right?
Yeah, I mean that's every conference. So that's definitely a fact.
And I really think UConn, the value. I think they're such a good brand and such a good program, athletic department, that they would be able to. I think they could eventually compete. It might take them a couple of years, but I think, and with the transfer portal today, and with Jim Moore Jr. as their coach, who's coached in the NFL, he could probably recruit some guys. I think they could compete in the Big 12 or the ACC, either one, in a couple of years. I really do.
Yeah, and I agree with you there, Couz, that the transfer portal has changed everything. Where a team would need at least 4 or 5 years to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to build their team. The transfer portal has changed everything. And I think one of the facts that people have to look at too is, I thought TCU was a good team this year, not great. But then look at the transfers they've added from Alabama, Texas, just by entering the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
They're just the way that team is built is completely different by adding those 6 or 7 guys they've added to the portal. That's going to be a damn good team this year. That's going to be, in my opinion, even with Oklahoma and Texas in there, TCU should be the favorite to win the Big 12 in football.
Right. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, just how well they're coached too. I mean, it's a fact.
And they got some guys coming back. They got some great talent out of the portal. Yeah. I mean, even losing Max Duggan, I mean, the guy that's going to be starting beat him out for the job last year until he got hurt. So
at the end of the day, when you look at Sonny Dykes, the guy can coach quarterbacks. I mean, if I'm a TCU fan, I am not nervous at all about the quarterback position. Yeah. It's going to be very quarterback friendly to put up points.
Right. All right. Let's address this. JJ, you might know the answer to this question. I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. Why did Pitt get offered ACC membership but not WVU? Is their TV market that much bigger, or are they a better school? I'm going to give my opinion, and I'll let you give yours. Mm-hmm. I think, number one, the academic piece was huge there, because it's no secret Pitt's academic rating is much higher than West Virginia's. And I think the TV market probably did play a role in it too. What are your thoughts on that, JJ? You may even know the whole story. I don't know.
So to be quite honest with you, I think just strictly take out the TV markets. I think it was just academics for where we were in college football. How many years ago? It was academics because they declined Louisville in the early portion for the same exact thing. So when you look at it, I think West Virginia, obviously being in Morgantown, it's a smaller town. But here's the thing: when you look at the actual draw of West Virginia, it's not just Morgantown; it's the entire state of West Virginia. Let's be honest. The best football team in West Virginia. I don't even care about this past season. I understand what Marshall did this year and what they're doing down there. They're building a good program down there. Charles Huff's doing a good job. But here's the thing: the actual team and the actual university as part of West Virginia is the University of West Virginia. It's that simple. They have a major draw. And I think that when you look at their numbers specifically, the reason they didn't get in is just because of the academic portion of it. If that was today, if we were to go back into time and we were in the same portion of college football as we are today, West Virginia would not be in the Big 12. West Virginia would be in the ACC, along with Pitt, and along with Cincinnati as well. That's a fact too. I mean, it would be a lot different. And I think as time goes on, a lot of people don't know this, but there's a look-in. It's called a look-in, and it's a clause in the ACC media rights deal. Okay, the grant of rights will always be there till 2036, no matter what. But there's a look-in in 2025. I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a major, major shift, and they're going to add teams when it comes to 2024, 2025. And do not be shocked if that conversation comes up about trying to add one. They talked about SMU earlier, but don't be surprised if they go talking to West Virginia and Cincinnati about travel and things of that nature, because the grant of rights is holding the ACC together. No one's going anywhere. They try to tell people, Clemson and Florida State, they can make all the noise they want. Clemson actually came out and said, we don't want to leave the ACC. We want to stay in the ACC, but we just want more money. That's a very fact. They've done a hell of a job. They are the number one program in the ACC.
Right.
Florida State, they're grab at this point. They haven't done shit in the ACC for over 20 years. I mean, well, not 20 years. It's been, close to 10. Mm-hmm. Because they won a national championship in, I think it was 2013. They can bark all they want, but they're trying to get more money. And I've had attorneys look at the grant of rights deal. It's strong. They're not going anywhere. You're going to need the grace of God to break that thing. And even if you do, you're going to have to give up $200 to $300 million at this point for the next at least 4 years. So no one's going anywhere. But I can tell you this: if the ACC was looking to add, and we had this back, 10 years ago when the ACC was adding teams like West Virginia, Pitt, mm-hmm. things of that nature, West Virginia, Cincinnati, and Pitt, Syracuse, and Louisville would be in the ACC altogether. And that's the best, and that's how it should be. just for terms of travel, terms of competitiveness. I think that's what it should be, and it's what it would be if it was now in today's market.
Yeah. Did you hear the interview with the ESPN guy? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was one of the head guys at ESPN. He was on a podcast, I don't know, a month or two ago, and he made a comment that it's no longer about the size of the media market now. They're now looking at the games and the matchups. He said, why do you think – he said that's what makes the ACC basketball so – he said the North Carolina Duke basketball game is the biggest game of the year. So that being said, it would make perfect sense. I mean, you look at the Backyard Brawl last year and the draw at it. I mean, it drew what? Over 1 million viewers on a Thursday night. Okay?
1.6. 1.6. It beat Penn State and Purdue. That's
a big number for a Thursday night game. Okay. For two quote unquote small market teams, especially, right?
Yeah.
But that game means so much to both fan bases. The West Virginia Tech game usually does pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get those teams in the same conference, you will get TV views. I don't care if they're 0-11 going into that game, because the fan bases, and I've witnessed it with my own eyes for the first time, they hate each other. Not personally, but it's a rivalry, man. Both teams wanted that game so bad. I mean, the fans were barking at each other in the friggin' foyer before you even get into the stadium.
Yeah.
I mean, or the concourse rather. It was crazy.
I can tell you this.
I mean, that's college football, man. That's how it should
be. That's how it should be. And you look at this, I will say this in terms of the ACC, and just in terms of there's an old term called cash is king. Okay, in college football, rivalry is king. Okay, when you have rivalry games, it's a very much it's hatred, it's dislike, it's a game that everybody wants to see. Okay, nobody wants to see the game of just hey, there's feelers out there. There's nothing really bad about it. When you go to a West Virginia Pitt football game, there's collisions. There are major collisions going on. There's a lot of talk, and believe me, I've done enough interviews. I've heard about the stuff that was being said on the field. That's how it should be, and that's the kind of games that people love. Now, with the return of the Backyard Brawl being 1.6 million, they're projecting on ESPN to be over 2 million this coming season. Okay, it'll be to Morgantown. I'd be kind of shocked if I was looking up some of the matchups. It'll definitely be in contention for College Game Day again. They had College Game Day come in, not the full spread and everything like that this past year at Pitt. But there was guys, obviously Kirk Herbstreit, all them guys were there, and they had it on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you this, rivalries are huge. They're huge. And at this point, you're kind of looking at markets to where there's really not much markets out there anymore. It's kind of, okay, what kind of brand can I grab? How much viewership can I get out of this team? What do we look like in the future? When 2025 comes around and the ACC is allowed to go negotiate for more money but keep the grant of rights, they're going to be looking at all conferences. I mean, especially too when they were talked about the recent athletic directors meeting. That's a real thing. It's the ACC has some strong teams in it, some very good traditional powerhouses between Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and obviously Duke and North Carolina, especially in basketball. Even with Syracuse, even with Jim Boeheim really struggling this year, obviously they'll have a turnover this year and having a new coach, their assistant that's there. They're going to try to add those teams. And I can tell you, if you bring in, it's kind of like a precursor. If anybody hasn't noticed yet, Pitt faces Cincinnati week 2, and they face West Virginia week 3. That's not by accident. That was planned out years ago because of the terms of, hey, what kind of viewership are we going to get and what's it going to look like? Because ESPN's always working behind closed doors. They're always 6 or 7 years in front of other people until something happens. So it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to that game. I haven't got tickets yet, unfortunately, but I think the only thing I know for us, the only thing they have available right now is season tickets, basically. They haven't – has Pitt put their single game tickets on sale yet?
No, I think that happens actually at the end of May, because it's funny. I'm waiting until those tickets open up because I'm getting my season tickets this year. I'll be a new season ticket holder. I usually just buy tickets to every game.
Yeah.
But this year I'm actually going to buy tickets for season tickets, and they just said they're renewing, but they allow them in Pitt's way of doing it. They allow you to renew, but then they give them first option to add tickets.
Right.
Well, apparently they're grabbing that shit up, and it's like, okay, well, what the hell? Hopefully we'll be able to add some stuff in there.
Yeah, right now, I mean, I can already go on the secondary market and buy tickets today for that game. I guess season ticket holders are buying them and reselling them. I'm assuming that's what they're doing because I don't know how else you could get them.
Yeah,
You can go on the secondary market and buy them, but they're $250.
yeah. They're going to be expensive. I mean, I can tell you this. Hell,
I may just end up having to bite the bullet, man. I don't know. I was hoping not to have to pay that much.
I can tell you this. I went with a friend this year, and I paid him face value. We were sitting in the club, and it was like I paid him $275, and he was being kind of nice because obviously the street value. I mean, hell, even up top, even the upper deck, they were selling those for $500. I mean, holy hell!
Yeah, I know a guy who went and sat in the upper deck and paid $200.
Really?
Yeah.
I love Pitt, man. That's a lot of dough.
It was over 200. That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah.
But I'm not missing. I'm gonna do everything I can to get to that game. I may have to just bite the bullet and get the tickets, but we'll see.
It's a special game.
It is, man. And I've never been to one in Morgantown. Last year was my first backyard brawl ever. And I'm not, and it'll be even cooler in Morgan. Now I will say though, there's something special about visiting an away stadium for a game.
Mm-hmm.
I did it
Very
twice
unique.
last year. I had never done it before. I did it twice last year. I did it for the Pitt game and I did it for the Virginia Tech game because it's only an hour from my house.
Mm-hmm.
And both times were really fun. Now the Virginia Tech game, I had some fans that were because we beat them and they were pissed.
Yeah.
And there were some a-holes in the crowd, but started the inbred jokes and crap with me. But other than that, I had a great time, and it was a pretty cool experience to get to hear see Enter Sandman live and all that. I mean, just experience the atmosphere of a different stadium. It's a new experience that you don't get. And I enjoyed that.
Yeah, because I went to Blacksburg a couple years ago when Pitt beat Virginia Tech down there because they've been down for a couple of years now. Those fans, that's how they are, man. That's not even just West Virginia. That's every team when they go through there. They get all pissed off.
They were nice until the end of the game.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden everything changes.
They started talking trash to it. But I will say though, it was just one guy that did that. 90% of the fans were extremely nice.
Well, that's good.
It was just one guy that had an issue. But anyway, Kenny Evans says, "Do you all think conference will ever drop low production teams and replace them with higher teams like Big Ten, Northwestern, SEC, Vandy?"
Yes.
I don't know. I think it may be at some point in the future. I don't see it happening in the near future, but
10 years.
Yeah, I think it could happen because, I mean, for example, the ACC has already, and I've even seen Jim Phillips talk about this in articles. The ACC has already been visiting schools and talking with them to make sure they're investing in football.
That's a real thing. I can tell you this right now. That is a real thing that happened, and it's kind of like it's like in the real world. It's kind of like a warning shot. Whether your work, there's going to be people out there not doing their job, not giving 110%, and there's that boss that walks around and says, "Hey, is everything okay? Are we gonna get more production this time? I don't if I have to come back over and talk, that's great. But hey, just want to make sure you're doing good." It's a warning shot. If you're not investing into your programs, and especially football, and that goes for Duke and North Carolina too, especially Syracuse, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And the same thing with the Big Ten. Everyone talks about the Big Ten, things of that nature. I can tell you this. The Big Ten gets a lot of this hype about how great they are. That West Division is horrendous. And then you look at the East side, it's Michigan and Ohio State. Obviously Michigan State was horrendous this year. Obviously Penn State did well, but then they lose to the two major teams on that side. Obviously Rutgers is horrendous. They're horrible on that side. At the end of the day, they're gonna start looking at teams and saying, okay, hey, they're not bringing anything to us. People are not watching them. We're gonna move in another direction.
Yeah, there's a couple of people that disagree with us on that. Opie says the university presidents are the ones who vote yay or nay, and their priority is academics, and all the bad teams are high research / endowments and other things. I agree with that, Opie. You're not wrong to say that, but at some point, when the money becomes so great, at some point you got to say, you know what? What's more important here? Giving up hundreds of millions of dollars, or worried about, this academic piece, which isn't really going to take that big of a hit just because I'm not in this conference. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not saying I ain't. I know everything. I don't. I'm just I'm just speculating and kind of reading the tea leaves anyway. I'm not. But I think at some point when the money's getting so friggin' big that it's just going to be impossible to ignore it. That's my opinion. That academics is going to mean less over time.
Yeah, because I agree with you. And here's the thing: I do agree with Kenny, and well, yeah, I do agree with him saying in terms of the university and the presidents have that decision. But guess what? They're getting a lot of information from these people. Perfect example. Okay, TCU. They've been even under Gary Patterson, they were a consistent good team. They were never great. They were never bad. They were always good. And then you see this past year, they go to the college football playoff. Do you know their applications went up 72%? That's called adding money.
Yep.
So sports drive the university. Okay. When they have these institutions where, especially for research, even for Pitt's well known for the medical field, business, things of that nature. We're the top public school in the Northeast. That kind of stuff. Football allows them to get that perception, allows them to be there, especially when they're in the ACC. They get that money. If Pitt wasn't in that ACC, and let's say they're in the Big East for football, they're not getting that. Academics are extremely important, but the athletics are what really drive these universities. That's where they get their money from. Clemson, they're in the ACC, but they go to the college football playoff every year. They missed this past year, but then when they go there, they get like $10 million. Well, they just drop more money into their programs there. Pitt just dropped $230 million on Victory Heights, where they're adding all new facilities up on in Victory Heights, where the Peterson Event Center is. Everything. I mean, overall, between that and football in the past 3 years, Pitt's dropped over $600 million. I mean, that's a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's going to be hard. It's going to be impossible to ignore. And then most of these universities out here now are losing money. Enrollment's down everywhere. Money's becoming more and more important every year to these universities.
Yeah, and the enrollments,
especially after COVID.
Yeah, the enrollments are going down like crazy. It's funny up here in Western Pennsylvania. Bloomsburg, Edinburgh, Cal U. What's the other one? There's another one that's out there. Clarion. They're all merging together because their enrollments are so bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a fact.
Yeah. Guys, just a reminder, if you want to make sure I see, because I mean, I'm trying to get as many of these comments as I can, but if you want to make sure I see them, you can drop me a super chat, and it'll highlight the comment and I'll see it. But Simon says, kind of weird, West Virginia and Pitt have the same school colors. They're the same, but they're not.
They're not. Yeah. West Virginia has navy blue. Pitt has royal blue. It's different. That's the difference.
And the gold's different as well. Our gold's a little darker.
Yeah.
Ours is called old gold, actually. It's actually not really, I mean, depending on what merch you buy, the yellow is going to vary some, but it's actually almost a gold color more than it is a yellow.
I was going to say, you guys are more gold and we're more yellow. It's like a vibrant, they call it a vibrant yellow.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. Royal blue and vibrant yellow is Pitt. And then like West Virginia has those darker colors.
Yeah. It was nice last year, LOL. Yeah, Big Dan T was with me at the game, but he's a channel member as well. Thank him for his support. Ferris, thanks for hopping on, man. Simon says UConn could always build a new stadium, either on campus or outside. So, yeah, a lot of people agree with us on UConn, man. Think they would be a good addition. Jason O says there is zero chance the Big Ten presidents will vote to remove their most academically prestigious school out of the conference.
I would say right now it's very low, but in the future, when you're adding teams, especially like when you look at, like, for instance, a prime example people always say, and I get it always on my channel whenever I'm doing a live show, is that in a perfect world, Pitt should be in the Big Ten. In a perfect world, yes, because they have the academic institution, everything that they need. They have all the requirements to be part of the Big Ten. Where I can't remember that there's, it's like the AAC or something like that, their qualification or something. But at the end of the day, right now, academics are important. But as you see as the years go on, prime example we just talked about is that West Virginia didn't get into the ACC because of academics. If that happened now, West Virginia would be in the ACC. That's a fact.
Right.
They could try to hide behind the whole thing of like academics and all this stuff. It's not about academics. It's always about the money, no matter what. They'll have one or two maybe academic schools that are in there that are horrendous, but after that, they'll knock some schools out.
Yeah. Well, and I've even heard that, and this is a rumor, so I just don't, and I don't know the guy I heard it from one of his, I guess, close acquaintances who has some connections to some prestigious academic school. But apparently there are some of these high academic institutions that are reportedly at least talking about the fact that they're getting tired of chasing these athletic. They're basically tired of trying to keep up with the Joneses in athletics when their main focus is supposed to be academics.
Yeah.
And there's even some people saying, well, there's speculation, will they form their own conference? Like the Northwesterns, the Vanderbilts, the Dukes, will they go out here and form their own separate conference where they don't have to worry about how big their stadium is and all of this, and they can just focus. I mean, they'll have sports, obviously, but they will just focus on academics. And that's, who knows? It's possible,
I wouldn't be shocked if you saw like UNC and Duke. I mean, UNC is different because they're actually decent in football. Duke had a good year this year as well. They ended up having 9 wins. He's doing a good job down there building that program back up. But you look at Duke, what's stopping them from going to the Big East and going there for football and then having a renegotiation down there with all the money for football? Nothing's really stopping that.
Right. Big Dan T. Oh my Lord, man. And he gave me a super chat, so I'm supposed to read it.
Hey.
He says, tell him they spelled shit wrong on that flag. LOL. Good stream, guys. I'm no ACC fan, but would be nice to play Pitt VT every year.
Big Dan, you're killing me, brother, but I love it, though. I love it.
JJ's a man. He can take it. Man, Lord Raiden, don't be disrespectful to my guest, please, man. Come on. I appreciate your support, but that's a little overboard. We all have a right to our opinion. We know academics matter more. We're not saying they don't. Aloha Nate says, wrong. Academic research money is way more than a football's TV contract. These guys just don't know. Okay. We're giving an opinion, man. We never claim to know everything.
That'll happen.
It's all good. Sports drive the university. LOL. Sure thing. They're big guy. Love Couz, but you don't have a clue. Anyway.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, where do you think they get the money from? I'm just being honest, man. Where do you think the money comes from?
Yeah,
I'm just telling you. So how come, if that's the truth and that's a fact, then how come UConn's over $100 million in debt? That's just a fact.
The sports is the billboard for the university.
That's a fact, man. If they're not in these Power 5 conferences, go look at the rest of these universities. They're struggling and they're closing.
Yeah.
I'm an academics guy too. Hell, I went to Pitt for the academics. I played baseball there. But guess what? At the end of the day, let's be honest, I was there. They talk about all the time. Athletics is what drives the money that goes to the university.
Yeah. I don't believe this guy's talking about a number of teams in a conference. I don't believe anywhere north of 24. I don't want over 16. Yeah, I don't really like the idea of these conferences getting super big either. But
I would think, no more than 20. I think 20 would be no more than that. I think that's where they're trying to go, is kind of trying to make those super conferences.
Yeah, I think it's coming, man, whether we like it or not. I think it's just the way everything's moving in that direction. Unfortunately. Real quick, you kind of touched on this earlier, JJ, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. The Florida State deal. Apparently, their AD came out again today. There was another article, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but apparently there's another article on him coming out talking about ACC. And what are your thoughts on that whole deal and them saying that they don't like the way everything's structured now?
For them, I mean, I understand what they're trying to get at, but here's the thing. In football, even in basketball, they've struggled in the ACC for how many years since Jimbo left in 2014? They haven't done a damn thing. Clemson does have a gripe. I understand that they want unequal revenue sharing. They're being so loud and vocal in the media because, one, they can't leave and they're freaking out about it, and they don't want to wait till 2025 when they renegotiate the media rights deal, the distributions, not the actual grant of rights till 2036.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, though, they're not going anywhere. They just want more money because they're getting left behind. But here's the thing: once that money comes in a couple of years, it'll finally cool down. But the fact is, though, they're making a lot of gripes right now because they're unhappy, because they're falling behind. And what really pisses them off at the end of the day, and this is a fact, is because they're pissed off UCF's getting more monny than they are. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
They're mad about that because they went from a group of 5 team to a power 5 team, and they're going to get a little bit more money than what they're getting. But in a couple of years, that'll change, and especially too, like Commissioner Phillips, I don't think he has been the, I think he's done a good job, but he hasn't done a great job. He's faltered in a number of different places. But what I can tell you, for him going around behind the scenes, there's going to be a major conversation about what comes up with money, and that look-in was the look-in in 2025, 2026 is what's saving them at this point, and not getting him killed.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, can you? I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but what is that look-in? What does that mean exactly?
So what it means is that a look-in, for instance, is what they do is they reevaluate the media rights deal in terms of, okay, here's what the teams look like now. Are they going to add more teams? Or are they not going to add more teams? If they do, you automatically strike, for instance, on a new deal. For instance, the 2036 grant of rights will always be there. That'll never be touched. ESPN is not dumb enough to say, oh, we'll just scrap the grant of rights and call it a day.
Right.
What they'll do is they'll allow them to add more money. Okay. Now, is it going to be like the 70 to 75 million that the SEC is getting? No, it's not. Because here's the thing. If FSU, let's say ESPN, people don't think about this. If ESPN just said, you know what? We'll let FSU and we'll let Clemson go to the SEC. Well, I got news for them. They're going to have to pay Clemson and Florida State $75 million. ESPN doesn't want to do that. So you'll probably see especially from a lot of the attorneys that I've talked to in terms of what their rating's going to be. You're probably going to see in that looking in the 2025, 2026, they're probably going to add 1 or 2 more teams. It's going to be from a Power 5 conference. I highly doubt it'll be anybody from the Pac-12 because I think just the ACC in general doesn't want to get into that coast-to-coast type thing, especially from different markets because the markets aren't there. You can have a discussion about Washington because it's the Seattle market. But when you look at it overall, I see them trying to go, whether it's like the SMU route or they try to go after more of the teams that are in the Northeast where you have Cincinnati, you have West Virginia. I think you add more of those rivalries in there, and you'll see the ACC being at 55 to 60 range, $55 to $60 million in that range. And then where your pro rata has to lie, you'll see where it ends up going.
Well, see, to me, that ties almost into our UConn conversation from earlier. Maybe that's what if UConn knows that's there, maybe they're holding out for that in 2025.
Yeah, and you could have that as well. You bring that in with football and basketball, maybe not as big in football, but we talked about, especially for basketball, you're really trying to add in more money, and you're creating the conversation because at the end of the day, the Pac-12, I just think they're in so much trouble. I understand they're trying to get the money, but here's my thing I don't understand, but Pac-12 fans always ask me. They're like, why do you think the Pac-12, JJ, how come you think the Pac-12 can't get 35 to 40 million a year? Here's my question. How can you believe that the Pac-12 can get a raise in distributions when your top 2 teams left, your top 2 markets left the Pac-12? How can you even describe to an ESPN or a Fox or any of those distributions? How can you leverage that? And I think GK just did a horrendous job of just negotiating this. He's in a lot of trouble. He can't figure it out, and they're having major discussions about where to get this money from. Mm-hmm. And when the minute he brought in Apple and people like that, I think he started to really get in trouble. Because here's the thing: you can talk about the future and all this stuff, but here's the thing: you have Paramount Plus, you have YouTube, you have basic cable. How many more subscriptions are people going to buy? You're really pigeonholing yourself. Mm-hmm. Cable and the regular markets of cable, or Comcast, Verizon. That's the lifeblood of what it is right now. People try to keep pushing to the streaming services, but how many streaming services can you have? People already have Hulu, Netflix, YouTube. I mean, you're going to add it up. It's going to be over $200, $300 a month. That's more than what the regular cable is now. Right. So you're fighting yourself both ways. And I think that's what's happening right now is the ACC will have to cut their losses where they are right now till 2025, 2026. And you're going to see these teams, especially they'll probably have 3 or 4 different teams join. That's what it is.
Yeah, makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you educating us on that because I didn't know that was even a thing.
Yeah, it was funny. I didn't know about it until I had attorneys look at it.
And they told me it would make sense why Florida State is doing what they're doing now, 2 years out, because they want to restructure that deal in 2025.
Yeah, right. And then you look at the noise that they're making. It gets ESPN all nervous about what they can do. So they talk about add more money, and on top of that too. When USC and UCLA left, they made a little bit of noise, but then those last 2 years, they didn't say a word. Clemson and Florida State are being so vocal because they know they can't go anywhere, and they're trying to basically it's an ACC strategy to give them more money in 2025.
Big Dan T says, another channel member, he says, would like to get together and get tickets to the game this year. Even if he is a Panther, he's a good guy.
I appreciate that, brother. That would be fun. Believe me, I'm looking. When those tickets go on, the single game tickets, I'm definitely going to be looking because one personally, like Couz, like you said, it's just a special thing. It's always cool to go to somebody else's domain and figure out what's really good, and it's really cool. That's why personally I would like to go to Morgantown and watch the game.
Beer Sports Show says go Couz and JJ Kitchen, and JJ, I would love to have your Pitt team in the Big 12 so Bearcats can beat y'all. LOL. Just saying.
Hey, we're going to find out who that team is this year. We're going to see. We'll get them at Acrisure Stadium here in Pittsburgh. It's going to be fun. But I can tell you this. It would be pretty cool. I love the ACC. Preferably, I would love Pitt to be in the Big 10 just because of travel and stuff like that. But if Pitt was to join the Big 12 in just some crazy circumstances, I mean, they'd have Cincinnati. They would have West Virginia there. They'd probably add some more teams like Syracuse. It would work out specifically. But it'd be pretty cool to face, TCU or even Baylor or Texas Tech. That'd be cool. It would be something different.
Yeah.
But it'd be really cool to face Cincinnati and West Virginia yearly. It'd be a lot of fun.
Well, and if you could get that Cincinnati Louisville rivalry back in the same conference too, that would be big. That's a pretty big rivalry. I don't know if people realize that or not.
Most people probably don't. And that's an old school rivalry.
Especially in basketball. I think it's bigger in basketball, but and Louisville, West Virginia was becoming a big rivalry too, believe it or not. When we were in the Big East together, and then that all fell apart because of the conference changes. But Louisville was becoming a pretty big rivalry for us, actually. Yeah, because our programs were so similar in a lot of ways. The other thing that came out today, and JJ, I don't know if you saw this or not, but there was an article in SaturdayTradition.com about, and I'm going to try to see if I can post it here real quick, if it'll let me share it here, about the Big Ten. It says, can you see it? It says, the further Big Ten officials delve into a new schedule format, the more exposed is the reality of USC and UCLA alone on the West Coast. Officials continue to work through format proposals. 3 permanent opponents and 6 rotating is still the likely choice, even though it could all be scrapped once a new commissioner is hired and expansion is revisited. Multiple Big Ten officials expressed concern about travel logistics with USC and UCLA, and earlier this month told Saturday Tradition that athletic scheduling, travel, and academic stress for all student athletes at all member institutions, not just football players, must be addressed, and that USC and UCLA can't be left on a geographic island. The Big Ten and SEC both will likely announce in May new schedule formats for their 16-team leagues in 2024. The Big Ten schedule could be reworked and allow more flexibility for USC and UCLA. Should the conference add 2, Oregon or Washington, or more teams, Stanford, Cal, in expansion. So I found that pretty interesting because I've heard varying things on that. I've heard some people say, well, USC and UCLA don't want Oregon and Washington in the Big Ten. But to me, it makes more sense for them to have them in the Big Ten for that exact reason right there, for the travel piece. If they're going to do 3 permanent rivals and 2 of those are on the eastern part of the country or at best case scenario in the Midwest, that's not a good travel situation for them.
I can tell you this, and it's funny. I brought this up immediately when that was brought out. What's going to happen when October, November, December, when USC has to go to Rutgers, or USC has to go, or UC, or even UCLA has to go to Ann Arbor, Columbus, Wisconsin. It's especially like for basketball, they can say what they want out there, And here's the thing: I think eventually what's going to happen is, if this goes into a major thing, where they try making 2 conferences or 3 conferences or whatever, they're going to need to. The strategy will no longer be markets or brands. It's going to be, okay, we need teams that'll be around this team to where we have those 3 permanent opponents. That's what the ACC is doing this year. The ACC scrapped divisions. The ACC no longer has divisions anymore this upcoming season. It's all one division. So, for instance, like Pitt's going to be facing consistently for the next 4 years Boston College, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech. That's all in perfect traveling range. It's all right there. It's all for the taking. And then you add in those other teams like NC State, Florida State, Clemson, Pitt will be facing them, things of that nature. But you have those in a specific area. They can claim all they want. They don't want Oregon and Washington there. Guess what? It's not their choice, and it's not up to them. And I think if the Big Ten was smart, they would add those 2 teams in there because of just the travel schedule. Or I guess the Big Ten's probably saying, look, you know what? If you don't want those 2 teams in there, experience the travel schedule. We'll see what your opinion is in a couple of years and where you're stressed. Obviously the Big Ten saved UCLA. They were $85 million in the hole. They were basically looking to close out half of their athletic department. That's how bad it is out there. So at the end of the day, they're going to go through a travel schedule. I think eventually it can get bumped to $100 million in distributions, depending upon which teams they add. But at the same time, though, the Big Ten understands this. If you add those other teams in there, that's cutting into your distributions. You can't get too big because ESPN's going to say, look, we gave you a pro rata up to 90, 95 million. If you add more teams, that is solely up to you, and it's going to cut into your guys' budget. It's not our problem. So at the end of the day, maybe 2 more teams will be the way to go, but it can only get so big because it'll cut distributions down. And I think that's what Kevin Warren understood until he left. We'll see what the new commissioner says, but they're not going to add teams just to add teams at this point.
I agree. But I think Oregon, thing is, they're making so much money. It would have to be, it has to be a major, major brand in order to even break even. Right.
Oh,
Here's the thing. There are reports out there that Oregon and Washington have talked to the Big Ten about coming for half of the Big Ten revenue. And that would still be more than they'd make in the Pac-12.
Yeah. I could see that happening for Oregon because the Phil Knight money, that'll be generations. Even when Phil Knight passes on, his family, there'll be a huge thing about supporting the University of Oregon. That's just going to be a fact. I could see Oregon doing that. Washington, if that's what they want to do, that's fine. But I guess it's $50 million. I guess you're getting at least half. But then again, you're $50 million behind. So when everybody else is updating their stuff, like Northwestern, they're completely renovating their stadium. It'll make their stadium capacity smaller, but it's a $700 million stadium. Where do you think they're getting that money from? It's not from the school. It's from that media. It's from those media right deals. Right. So if they want to do that, that's fine. But I just, it is what it is at this point. That's kind of like that's going on desperation at this point.
I agree, and there are reports out there too that, like Jim Williams, who writes for Forbes, and I actually had him on my show last week. He's been saying on Twitter that he's got some sources inside the Big Ten that are saying they don't want to add any more teams.
Yeah, but that's kind of what it was. Yeah,
but he made it clear. I haven't talked to everybody in the Big Ten. I've only got like 2 people who have told me that. So there's some dissension inside the Big Ten. So I think some of the universities do want to add some teams and some don't. So it'll be interesting to see who this new commissioner hire is going to be huge, in my opinion. People are talking about it, but I don't think they're talking about it enough. This new commissioner could determine the next big chess move, whatever you want to call it, in college football or college athletics, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I could tell you this, Kevin Warren didn't want those 2 teams. He didn't want them in there. He said, look, let's keep the distributions the way they are. We've already really pulled the strings. We have all the media, the markets. When you look at media markets, obviously in the Big Ten, they're very small. Okay. They have big fan bases, but you look at the overall TVs, the ACC, for instance, has the most television sets of any conference around the country because they're all in major cities. That's why. But when you look at the Big Ten, the reason they get more money is because they have major fan bases. Okay. But eventually you have to start looking at it and saying, okay, we've added the 2 last major pieces. Obviously, Notre Dame's out there, but I don't see them doing anything. And they've recently put out a thing where, especially too, Commissioner Phillips from the ACC worked at Notre Dame. In a perfect world, people can say what they want with the Big Ten. The Notre Dame would love to just stay with the ACC with basketball, all that good stuff, and then just keep Notre Dame football separate. That's in a perfect world. Okay, Notre Dame does not want to join a conference. Okay, the fact is that the Big Ten realizes they're in a great position. 90, 80, I think it's right now it's 85 to like 100 million in distributions. why would you need to add more teams? You can schedule those teams out of conference or do whatever. You can do whatever you want. At this point, keep your distributions. Make sure all your schools are happy. They're updating everything. They're investing money into athletics, all different facilities, everything. I think that's where it's at. And personally, I think the best commissioner in all of college football is Greg Sankey, man. I love that guy. He's playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. He's only adding teams that will bring value to the SEC, and he understands that the SEC is the best conference, and they don't need to do anything. It's everything that he's done at this point, like where he talked about Oklahoma and Texas reached out to him, and he went back to all the universities and said, "Look, I'm in favor of this, but what do you guys want to do?" And they saw the value that's in that. Okay, I think personally, the expansion talk between those two conferences, I don't know if the Big Ten adds more. And again, like you said, it's going to be up to who they hire as their commissioner. But I can tell you this, I think in a perfect world, they don't want to add any more teams. They don't. They love the distributions for each school. And I think each school is going to start to get a little bit pissed off when they say, hey, now we're losing money. They're not bringing, there's no value being added. ESPN is not giving us more money. Fox isn't giving us more money. Keep them out. Keep it out the way it is. We want to have the more distributions.
Yeah. I saw a report that Kevin Warren actually wanted to expand more. Now, he didn't specify teams, obviously. But he wanted to expand more, but the presidents didn't. And I even read that there was that a lot of the presidents were actually glad to see him leaving because they were not happy with how aggressive he was being in expansion.
Yeah, which kind of
this comes out that they want to. So it's like you don't know what. I don't know what's. My opinion is it's probably split down the middle. There's probably half the presidents do want to expand and half probably don't. I mean, if you think about it, if you're Minnesota or Northwestern, what value is it to you to add Oregon and Washington to your conference?
That's what I'm saying, man. I honestly, from what I was told, especially from my guys out, obviously between Northwestern, we got a good guy that's out there, but obviously too between Penn State and Michigan, they were saying, look, it was 70-30. They didn't want to expand. It was 70-30. The only teams that wanted to expand were Ohio State. Gene Smith was kind of targeting that because he thought it would add more money, and so was Nebraska. Nebraska was trying to add more, and what has Nebraska done in the past 10 years? Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Kenny Evans says, do you think Notre Dame will ever join the conference? Really? In what conference? Do you?
To be honest with you, from what Commissioner Phillips was saying, especially during the ACC media days, and the only reason why I take him a little bit seriously is because he actually worked at Notre Dame. He worked at Notre Dame for 6 years. I think they would join, honestly, because money's just not a factor with them because they have so much in funding and their following's big. It would probably be the ACC because of who their rivals are, and they've already got all their schools in there. Now, people say, they're up in Big Ten. They're up in Big Ten country. Why they would definitely join the Big Ten. If that was the case, they would have joined the Big Ten years ago. Because here's the thing: the buyout for Notre Dame to leave the ACC is minuscule compared to everybody else. There's a reason why they haven't left. They like the ACC because of the academic standards, who are the schools they face. Hell, look at their football program. They faced half their schedule is all ACC. You know what I mean? So it's pretty much like the ACC and the Pac-12 because their rivals are facing USC, Stanford, Cal, teams like that. So
and that's why a lot of people were thinking that the Big Ten would want to bring Stanford into the Big Ten just to get Notre Dame in. But I don't know that. And because they're already going to have USC, which is another Notre Dame rival, right?
Yeah. And what does Stanford bring? They're not good at anything.
Academics is it, and I mean they're good at the Olympic sports.
Yeah,
I mean I think they've won the most national championships actually in the non-revenue sports, but that doesn't move the needle from a financial perspective.
Yeah.
I like this comment here. First off, Beer Sports Show's made several comments. He says, Couz and JJ, I need to know y'all's secret keeping yourself in shape or at least not overweight. Number one, I'm not as in shape as you think I am. I have a dad bod like you wouldn't believe. Mine, you just can't see it on camera.
Dude, I work out
in good shape now.
I work out 6 days a week. That's like I call it my anchor, man. I'm in corporate banking for my career, and it can be very stressful at times. Especially recently, I can tell you that it's been very stressful in banking.
I bet.
Yeah, and obviously, what's going on hasn't been great. I grew up playing football. I played, I almost went to play Division I football in college. I ended up playing baseball. It's just it's a fundamental thing. It's kind of like your covenant. What's your why? What's your anchor? That's just kind of why I do it. It's like a consistent thing that kind of holds you accountable to where if I don't do it, I'm kind of blaming myself, saying, "Hey, I'm being lazy." It's kind of reason why I do it. It might be a weird thing to most people, but it's kind of like a fundamental thing.
No, I get it, man. I used to work out a lot too, and then I messed my neck up, and I got out of it, and just have.
You're smart, yeah. You're smart for doing that.
Well, when you I could go back into it, but I can't lift heavy anymore, and that's what I like doing.
Yeah.
So now I'm having a hard time motivating myself because I can't do what I enjoyed anymore. I would be doing it because I have to, and not because I want to.
Hey, you're in good shape at this point, brother. Believe me. You
Well,
look
I mean,
you look at everybody else.
No, I mean, I do have a little bit of a belly on me, but I'm not. I mean, I'm overweight if you look at the charts. I mean, I am overweight, but I'm a small frame guy, so I'm not supposed to weigh but about 165 pounds anyway. I like this comment here. It says, "Hopefully Notre Dame joins the Big 12 with the Mormons, Christians, and the Baptists." That's funny.
That's pretty good, John. That wins comment of the night. That was good,
man. And then he says, maybe the Methodists as well. They are okay at athletics. SMU, hey, never know, man. Wouldn't that be funny though if they got SMU and Notre Dame? Of course, Notre Dame's not coming in, but
that would be pretty funny.
Hey, might as well add Liberty while you're at it.
Yeah,
we could be the religious conference.
The all religious conference.
There you go. Outlaw college football, man. What's up? He says, "Will Pitt be a target of the Big Ten when the ACC granted rights has the loopholes exposed?" We talked about that a little bit earlier, but go ahead and expand.
I'll tell you what, in a perfect world, it would be great for Pitt to be in the Big Ten. But at this point, for where they stood about like 5-10 years ago when Pitt looked to expand, Penn State was blocking that. Penn State doesn't want Pitt in the Big Ten. That's been known for a lot of years. Joe Paterno did that kind of stuff, and it's the reason why Joe Paterno was hated mostly by everybody besides Penn State people, and obviously for other reasons besides that after everything that came out.
Right.
But in a perfect world, I think what people have been talking to me about, it's been a light discussion, nothing really heavy, but Gene Smith of Ohio State and Heather Lyke of Pitt. Heather Lyke's the athletic director at Pitt. Gene Smith is the athletic director at Ohio State. Heather Lyke actually at Pitt just won athletic director of the year. There have been light conversations about what they can do to kind of override that. It's been very light discussions,
right?
Nothing extreme. But I just think right now, I just think the Big Ten, unless they were looking for rivalries, to be honest with you, if it was looking for rivalries, it would add, State Penn, my man, he knows what's up. I can tell you this: in a perfect world, if the Big Ten was looking to add rivalries, they would be adding Pitt and West Virginia along with Cincinnati, because the Cincinnati rivalry with Ohio State too would be insane. I'm just telling you, if the Big Ten added 3 of those schools, you're having a lot of rivalries in that conference, a lot. But we'll see. It takes time.
Yeah. Let's see. Hall of Fame college football says, "Couz, you're a specimen. What are you talking about?" and he says, "Great show, fellas. Thanks, man. By the way, go check out his show too. It's off the Hall of Fame Media, Hall of Fame college football. He's an Oklahoma fan, but he covers all topics. And
I'll definitely follow him.
Huh?
I said, heck yeah, I'll definitely follow him.
Yeah, and Outlaw College Football, of course, is he has his own show as well. He likes to grill Lincoln Riley as much as possible.
Yeah, Big Ten.
Along with some other people.
Yeah.
But see, Big Dan T says, wait a minute. All right. He says, "I know this is a separate conversation. I'm not meaning to make things political. However, I've done a bit of research on it, and the Big Ten and other conferences do hesitate to add teams from Cali and other states because of issues to do with state law, like what happened at Penn swimming. Some states have differing laws, and that has been an issue." I'm sure, things like that do matter, believe it or not.
From what I've heard, I don't know about you, Couz, but between the Pac-12 and the Big 12 and the SEC, like the Pac-12 schools will never, there's a number of Pac-12 schools, I think it's more of California, that would never join. And they talked about southern states and stuff like that. You just have egos everywhere. I don't get into too much of that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of stupidity around that. Not, unfortunately, when you get politicians, involved, common sense is out the window. It's about egos at that point. I let it go.
It's come out in the last week or two that BYU may be worth about $4 million a year to the Big 12 media deal per team. Okay.
Really?
Yes. Jim Williams from Forbes said that's what he heard from someone that works. I think he said they works at ESPN. I'll have to go back and listen to the podcast again. But anyway, someone told him that that's what BYU was worth. And the Pac-12 snubbed their nose at BYU multiple times because of their quote unquote biases or whatever, which come down to their religious beliefs, really.
Yeah, it's
and now it's almost like, I don't want to say karma, but look where the Pac-12 is right now.
Yeah, and
if they added BYU, they probably wouldn't be in this situation right now.
Yeah, and I just what kills me is that, look, everyone has their own opinions. You know what I mean? To think it's almost like you take the individuality out of people if you got to think one certain way and just do one thing, just stay in a tunnel. Everyone has their own decisions. I think the more and more you look at everything around the country right now, there's got to be more love, man. There's got to be more love and acceptance, and just let's work. There's more what we have in common than what politicians say. Politicians will do everything they can to make sure that we're all divided.
Absolutely.
So
I don't know if you saw, I retweeted Coach Prime's tweet that he put out this morning about love, and we all just need to.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Heck yeah, I liked it.
I mean, I know a lot of, say what you want about Coach Prime, but that quote right there hit. I mean, it was dead on the money, in my opinion.
If the country was run like a football team, and you bring up people from different walks of life and truly bonded as a team, we'd be in a lot better place than we are right now. Unfortunately, we have people that don't really care about us, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yep. Jason says Pitt is not a candidate for the Big Ten. UVA and UNC would be their first choices from the ACC, and after that, probably GT and FSU. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we're debating that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think Duke and UNC.
But that doesn't mean there's not conversations going on behind the scenes. Heather Lyke, she's got to do what's best for Pitt, and she wouldn't be doing her job to the fullest extent, in my opinion, if she didn't go have those conversations and say, "Hey, what can we do?"
Yeah.
What power? Every school that's not in the Big Ten or the SEC wants to be in the SEC or the Big Ten. Do they not?
Yes, so and that's why she's having those conversations.
They owe it to the institution that they work for to ask those questions. So
yeah.
And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but did you know that Heather Lyke and Gordon Gee have a connection? Apparently, he hired her at some point early in her career at one of his previous jobs.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know
extremely well connected, man. I mean, he's been president at like 5 or 6 different universities. So he's a lot of the people that are university presidents now, he's hired at some point in his career.
I was going to say Gordon Gee. I mean, I'm from Pittsburgh here, and I've had friends that go to West Virginia. Yeah. I mean, he's a well-known, obviously his bow tie he always wears and stuff like that. I mean, he's a well-known face, man. I wasn't wild about making what's his face, the scapegoat. Your previous athletic, Shane
Lyons.
Yeah, I wasn't big about him making Shane Lyons the scapegoat of everything that's going on with the football program and basketball and stuff like that.
Right
now, I do like the is it named somewhat Wrecker? Is it Wreck? What's his name? Yeah, Ren Baker. I personally, I think he's going to be good. Give him time. You know what I mean? Let him do his thing. He needs to be given a little bit of time. But to make Shane Lyons the scapegoat, it's just, I mean, it is what it is. But
yeah. Outlaw says Ohio Stank would not like having Cincy in the Big Ten. They have had the run of that state for 100 years.
Yep. But when you look at it, I think when you have all of the teams together, it's like what Ohio State is to Cincinnati, Penn State is to Pitt. You're always going to have a team that's very disruptive or anything. But as time goes on and you start looking at each team, it's, the Stank. Yeah. I'll tell you what, it's just, it's funny. But like when you look at those teams, how great, when you look at that conference and you added Cincinnati, West Virginia, and Pitt to that conference, how cool would that be? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Outlaw says time Deion Sanders is a farce and hides behind religion. I don't agree with that, but I knew that would draw that comment out of him because I knew his opinion on Deion Sanders. I don't necessarily agree. Outlaw, but I knew how you felt about him.
Yeah, Dion, I think he can do some things good and some things bad.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
there's
don't like
definitely both
everything he
sides.
does. I don't like kicking people off the team on camera in front of the world. I think that's stuff that needs to be kept.
Me and
behind
Jonathan
closed
did a show
doors.
about that. Me and Jonathan did a live show about that, about how
Yeah, I think I saw it.
like I didn't like it.
I didn't either. I don't like a lot of the things he does, but I think he comes from my personal opinion. I think he comes from a good place.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I just I don't like everything he does, but I don't like his flashiness. I didn't like him coming in to music, to his press conference, to his speech to the team. And,
Yeah.
I mean, he's not a pro wrestler. He's a football coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're kind of putting the ego out there. You know what I mean? You're kind
of he's a little bit too flashy for me. I don't like all of that.
Yeah.
But if you look at it just as a man and the things he seems to stand for, assuming he's legit, I respect it.
Yeah.
And no matter what you like about him or not, that statement he put out was on the money.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Of course, Hall of Fame college football asks what he's hiding behind. I think they're going to have a little bit of an argument here. Those two guys have a history, so let's just leave it at that. So we probably ought to cut the show off at this point. If you've seen those two dudes and what they've said about each other.
Oh my God.
Oh man. But anyway, Outlaw has one more I got to address. He is a channel member. So he says, a good one, 513. You just give me fire for my podcast. You just coined the stank.
He just coined these stank.
That's
Outlaw
awesome.
Outlaw has a great show too, man. I watch his stuff. It's great.
Yeah, he has a good show, and I like Jason's show too. I know those guys don't always agree on everything, but they both have good shows. And Kenny Evans, one more comment here. He says, "What's your all game prediction score for this year's Backyard Brawl?" Man,
ooh,
I haven't really had time to dig into it yet. Just on the surface right now today, without knowing what Pitt's got coming back and all that, I'm going to, and because I'm a homer and it's at West Virginia, I'm picking us to win this one by a field goal probably. But I mean, that's really about as far as I can go right now because I haven't really dug into it.
Brother, and that's what I have. It's a Backyard Brawl. I think they've all been so close. I think it's just at this point, just without diving into both rosters and seeing who's come back and who's not, I just think at this point, it's a 3-point game. I haven't even decided who's going to win. Yeah. It's going to be a 3-point game or a 7-point game. It's going to be one of the
When I actually do my prediction video, I might change my mind. I don't know. Like I said, I got to know more about what the roster makeup looks like in the fall because the transfer that they're going to lose and add guys. Both teams are going to lose and add guys before that game.
I was going to say, yeah. Ask me that question August 25th. That's when I'll have more description when fall camp's over and what the rosters look like, and it'll be interesting.
And what do you think Colorado's record will be?
Oh my God! Just because I don't, between Oregon, Utah, and I guess USC and UCLA are still there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what. I'll give them. I'll go 6-6.
Yeah.
6-6.
I think they make a bowl game, but I mean it's going to be a huge. I know he's made a lot of roster turnover, but dude, they were 1-11 last year. I mean,
only reason why I say 6-6 too, and it's kind of between 6-6 and 5-7 because they have TCU on the schedule. I saw that their schedule's hard as shit. I mean, they have they're out of conferences.
I don't think they're beating TCU.
Yeah, they're not.
Honestly,
they're not.
And he agrees with you. He says 5-7 or 6-6.
Yeah,
I think that's more. I think that's pretty realistic. I actually think 6-6 is probably the ceiling for them. And I could be totally wrong. He might surprise me and win 7 or 8 games, but that would be a massive turnaround to go from 1-11 to winning 7 or 8 games in a season.
Yeah, and I just think that he's a better coach than what was there. Because if you listen to some of those players, they didn't even give a shit last year. It was kind of like they just showed up and they went. Like wearing their hats in the meetings and stuff like that.
And he pretty much told them that.
Yeah.
Like most people are not going to be here. Which I actually didn't mind that part of it. I mean, I liked his honesty and the fact that he's going to hold guys accountable. What do you think about him making them earn their jersey numbers?
I know the players liked it around the country. They're like, earn your stuff or whatever.
Did they?
That's because I saw some players tweet it out like, yeah, earn everything. I think preferably in that team, I understand why he's doing it. When you're 1-11 and you're that bad, you got to start from ground zero. You got to build the program you want. If he comes in after like a 5-7, 6-6 year, then you're having a conversation. Okay, maybe that's a little bit too much. But when you're 1-11 and you just got stomped all year, I think what he's doing is right, and he's kind of setting the course where maybe the next year after that, they won't have to earn their numbers because their record will be better. If he goes 5-7 or 6-6, that's major progress in year one. I don't care. I mean, that's as close as it can get. But I think he's starting ground zero, saying, "Look, you guys were horrendous. I mean, like just horrendous. So you got to start somewhere and kind of lay the foundation. Like this is not going to happen again. It's not enough."
Yeah, and one last comment I'll throw up on the screen before we go. Outlaw wants Pitt and Alabama to play a home and home.
Oh my gosh, that would be so much fun. We'd probably get killed, but you know what? Hey, it'd be fun though. You know, I'd love going out to Tuscaloosa. That'd be fun.
We have it on the schedule for 26, 27, but I'm worried that with this new SEC scheduling format, they end up canceling it because Saban's not happy about playing so many good teams. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, he wants to face what is it? Sanford State or whatever. And
yeah, Saban's he's the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest college football coach of all time. But man, he whines a lot. He's getting a little gripey, but especially for a guy that talks about how he recruits so well. Yeah, he's getting old and cranky. Yeah. But anyway, all right, JJ. Listen, it's been an hour and a half. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a great show. We'll have to do it again. We have to do it more often. I know. I'll get you on my show too. And I love joining the show. It's always a good conversation, and one, obviously, it's very knowledgeable, but also too, it's just good dialogue. It's why especially the people that comment in, they did a hell of a job. There was great comments, great questions. Yeah, and I have no issue with people disagreeing with us. I just don't. When people start calling names, it kind of ticks me off. So I got a little perturbed earlier. I have no issues with people agreeing, disagreeing with me. That's what makes the show interesting. But also, good shout out to you for the Jared Daggy video, by the way. Oh yeah, too. I mean that's ridiculous, man. People were calling him a shit show, and I'm like, dude, what has he ever done to you? He has not affected my life one bit, other than watching him throw some bad passes on a Saturday. Yeah, good guy overall. He was at West Virginia for how many years? Did his time at West Virginia. He clearly loved West Virginia because he went back there for the pro day. I have no problem with that. That's why, good for you for saying something. Yeah, and I criticized him too, but I criticized his play. I didn't criticize and call him names, and every fan base has got people like that. But yeah, believe me, we got some on our side too. Believe me. But it's well known, nuts, man. And I've blocked a couple of your fans. I can't imagine. I can't even imagine. I saw Talk His Pick comes on here a little bit every once in a while. Yeah, I actually blocked him on Twitter, man. I can't deal with his. I mean, all he wants to do is call names and call me an inbred, and there's no reason. There's no room for a conversation. It's kind of like I can't deal with that. If you want to talk football and talk crap about my team, that's fine. But believe me, I had a couple West Virginia fans in my DMs. It's like okay, it's like all right. They were DMing you. Oh hell yeah! See, you should have seen some of the DMs I was getting about just about football, basketball. I was like, what in the hell? Yeah, that's too far, man. Talk His Pit never did DM me. I'll give him that one. DMing people is just out. To me, that takes it to another level. Yeah. If you put it out there publicly is one thing, but when you start DMing people, to me, that's more personal, and I almost take that as a personal threat. Yeah. To me. But hey, at the end of the day, you have a great show, and that's why I apologize on behalf of the rest of us fans that we have some knuckleheads. Hey, likewise from us, brother. But I can tell you this: you have a hell of a show. That's why I love coming on here, and it's always good. Take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of your night. And at some point, I want to have an off-air discussion with you that's related to what you do. So, okay, perfect. Okay, I'll holler at you maybe in the next few days or something. All right, I appreciate it, and thanks for everyone who also thank you for everybody that follows me on my channel and stuff. Check your show. By the way, tell them where to find you on Twitter. I forgot to do that. Oh shit, I forgot. On Twitter, just follow me at JJ_Kitchen40. That's my main account. And then obviously I have my YouTube channel, Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. And obviously I'll be having Couz on for a number of topics, conference realignment, the Backyard Brawl. It'll be a great discussion. But yeah, our Backyard Brawl preview show last year. Brother, I had a guy watch that. That's why I had to comment. I had to tag you in that post because I had a guy from Pitt that was actually watching that like 5 months after we did that. I was like, man, this is pretty cool. Like it was pretty awesome. Yeah, it's still getting hits on the one I put up on Spotify, on the podcast side. Yeah, it's still getting hits, man. Dude, special game, and it's still showing up in my. It's still showing up in my. When you look at the past 30 days, yeah, it pops up every month. You just did a hell of a job for that, so I'm not surprised. What's that?
You did a hell of a job with that show. I'm not
You did
surprised.
too. You were on there too, man. So it's both of us. Appreciate it. But anyway, guys, everybody have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.